They had names, she was sure, but Terzawa didn't want to know. It wasn't cold, or even cruel of her. She frequently had to remind another what her name was. Girl was the title she was used to more than even the, faintly, familiar name. Appearance was the descriptor of choice, not personal names. Especially not in a world where the guy you saw standing guard, or the woman that knew the secrets to herbal-scented laundry would be gone as soon as you blinked. Between the grief and homesickness, which never lightened up in any way, but was acknowledged all the same, and the conclusion that they were all doomed anyways, she couldn't muster the interest to get attached. Besides, no one really stood out to her as important. As fogged as her other memories were becoming, with less and less interest paid to Aaron's stress-inducing life, and leisure hobbies in the very real danger of the here and now, she knew or suspected what she was part of, and it wouldn't matter in the end. Polishing weapons was a task shared by all Sakanji family. The thick purple crest starting from a sharp point on the bridge of her nose that spanned most of her eyelid, and ending in a thinner point almost to her temple, even if her eyes were a copper color, and skin was a touch too tan to do the coloring justice, was easily glimpsed at through a freshly sharpened knife's edge. There were kune of a type, heavy knives without a hilt pommel, or the ring handle, and simply shaped as a trowel might be with scraps of fabric wrapped around the hilt, but her family preferred short swords if at all. Orochimaru had canonically been an orphan, so it wasn't impossible that after her mother gave birth she might just end up dead with everyone else. The eyelid coloring which was shared in the family, as well as various shades of pasty pale white skin, was all over the place color-wise. Greens were common, as well as blues, and there were reds here or there. Only her father's line had purple. It's why they ruled the family as head, because purple was royal, and only the woman from river country had the metallic eyes to go with it. Ergo, Terazawa was closely related to the future Snake Sannin, and head of the village hidden in sound. That wasn't enough time to find a way to survive whatever would kill them all off, and just leave an orphaned child in another country. In a way, it was relieving. Not being the only one that knew what a shitstorm was coming, the only one perfectly placed to do anything about it. She could try to be one of those MacGuffins, a plot point, through what she left behind if she had any idea how to. Terazawa was too far from Konoha, too early, and not part of the recognizable cast list. The war between the Uchiha and Senju were still ongoing, meaning most of the establishing eternally at odds thing between the two clan heirs, or heads, was already over with. Or maybe it was long over, the rumors only exaggerated due to fear of what a shinobi village would mean for the rest of the world, so no one was passing on the word it was established, but still too late for her to do anything. Tara could just pass time until she died. Probably take a hard look at a map, or three, because Orochimaru ended up in the middle of fire in a shinobi village somehow, and the rest of her family was unconcerned with anything beyond the land of grass. It would probably hurt, dying. She didn't really recall if she had died as Eren, or what had happened that ended up with her consciousness displaced in a child's body. More than that, whatever it was that messed with her sense of self so badly, she had only fragmented ideas of what happened those few days. Therefore, even if there was a day or three of straight sprinting with a newborn baby in hand looming in her future, Terazawa didn't really mind. She'd do her part, ensure the canon of this world started as it would. Then, either she'd readjust as a simple farm girl, or hermit herbalist, or die. It didn't really sound all that bad to her right now. 000. Shimiko barely survived giving birth. Thus rendered bedridden, Terazawa had been tasked as her hands while she cared for the newborn. Aka-chan for now as a name still had to be thought up. The baby girl, what? Fussed weekly the first few days until a more balanced diet was given to the exhausted mother, and settled them both out from the pseudo-starvation. It was entirely possible to starve to death, even if you still ate. Scurvy was the disease for those that didn't get enough fruit or greens, she knew that much at least. Tara subtly sabotaged the so-called healer, dumping a lot of the exotic and possibly poisonous teas prescribed out in the grass surrounding the simple two-room home in exchange for an alternate willow bark tincture the older woman taught her, while she had been pregnant and needed the headache reliever. Shimiko barely had the energy to wonder why it all tasted the same, belatedly covered with some berries and fruit juices scavenged from the kitchen pit before she could, and drunk it obediently. A week passed, the newborn being dubbed Momomi, written with the kanji for professor, and work which combined made lesson, before Katsutaro returned to the little house. As the woman had gotten absolutely no stronger even as her second daughter developed into a less fragile creature, the man eyed her sourly then snorted at the second girl child presented to him before abruptly leaving again. Terazawa would have figured that was that, had her mother not said something. Tara-chan, whisper soft, her voice was still sure and placid even as those coppery eyes narrowed at her, what are you up to? Even with the excuse of sabotage, to hide behind, Shimiko had never assumed her daughter understood less of what was going on. If anything, she seemed to expect more after that hazy summer day when things snapped together, and she realized what was going on. Several months of watching her learn to conceal herself, even with most of it taken up by her pregnancy, had not changed that sharp regard that implied the not girl's cover was blown a long time ago. I do not know how to take care of a child. Tara offered equally as placidly, concealing the truth behind. Tara offered equally as placidly, concealing the truth behind what was still true. There was no way to outright lie to a censor of the type she and her mother was, so that route of dismissing blame was ignored. You raised me, therefore ensuring my senior is kept alive to do so is only natural. Burning copper bored into tempered copper, earning neither so much as a blink for an eternity's worth of moments. Eventually, when Momomi decided to weigh in on her sister's side by starting to fuss with discomfort, their mother hummed a non-answer as her attention was redirected. You will be a good big sister, Tara-chan. Shimiko observed in an oddly deadly soft voice before the younger girl could retreat for some lukewarm water drawn from the well that morning. Ensure Momo-chan has nothing to fear, won't you? The weight behind that implication, when she had spent the whole week avoiding the very thought, crashed into Tara's chest with the force of a falling boulder. Only managing a tight knot in the mother's direction, the girl fled to bury her mind with numbing chores a newborn caused. If Tara and Momo were the only ones to have the coppery eyes and purple eye markings, pale skin was common of the rest of the family. She might not be Orochimaru's sister, or aunt but mother. Eren had not been in a committed relationship to ever think of maybe having children, and Terazawa was way too young to be comfortable with that thought as well. Even still, social norms of this era was marriage by 14, with at least one brat on the way by then. Orochimaru was kind of an asshole, right? Would it be much of a loss if there wasn't a snake Sannin? Yes. If he was relying on Tara to give birth to him, he had a long wait ahead of himself. But she had sort of looked forward to the brat's appearance as a sort of sign that she was no longer needed, that her involvement was over and done with. Shimiko never recovered from the difficult birth, and 2 years later they buried her, with the rest of the recovered bodies of the Sakanji family near the base of the mountain that framed their home. 2 years of whispered instruction in arts not normally taught to Sakanji girls, not even their few shinobi, around and behind her husband's back to prepare for her eventual and inevitable death. So Terazawa could instruct Momomi once the older woman was gone. Katsutaro took another wife not days after the river native's death, one with green eye markings to go with her flat black eyes, and white skin only half a decade older than his 8-year-old eldest. That girl religiously avoided her husband's daughters from another woman, put off by the creepy blank metallic eyes that practically dared her to try interfering with how Terazawa raised Momomi. A few months after that their grandmother, the woman that had directed Tara around in her chores after Shimiko became unable, died, and left her double-room home to her granddaughters. Katsutaro then gladly forgot he ever had girl children for several years.